Welcome to the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. Today we have Angela Jouett, Calcasieu Parish Medical Reserve Corps, no initials here, Medical Reserve Corps, and a longtime partner of ours with the Region 6 Community Preparedness Working Group, coordinator of the Calcasieu Parish MRC, Angela Jouett. Thank you so much for joining us today on the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast.
Well, thank you, Bill. I really appreciate this, and I look forward to talking to you.
I was going to ask you, you are right there in the neck of the woods where the hurricanes have been going lately. We've had COVID that has been, taking all of our attention, but hurricane season did not play well with COVID, and it did not play well at all with your parish and the Lake Charles area. So if you will, tell me what you and the Calcasieu Parish Medical Reserve Corps had going on this season.
Well, I will, and I'll start. We were ground zero, means Laura, and then in October we had the Delta. And before all of this, everyone, like the whole country, was in COVID, shut down, lockdown. And we played a huge role in that because we were actually played the logistics with our ESF 8 group. And I'm actually housed in a very large warehouse with a set of offices here. So we were kind of the chosen ones to run all the logistics for giving out all the stuff that the state sends us in to give out to all the nursing homes, hospitals. There's actually probably about 300 partners that we set up something. This is the first time, you could almost say a pod for handing out material, because this was a first that it happened like this. So we had to set up a system pretty quickly, how we were going to do it. And the way we actually did it, we got with our ESF 8 group, and we got with the facilities director, with the administrators here at the parish, and we kind of put a core group together. We set up a hotline for that group that could call in. We also set up our own email system to be able to request stuff from us. And that's how we put our volunteers as well as our staff to run the whole system. When we first kicked it off, it was a little first time doing it. So we ran our telephone systems 24/7 through the weekend. And we operated this for about 2.5 months, as long as we were under the COVID and giving it out. And when I say that was probably pretty challenging, because as everyone knows, there was a shortage of so many materials out there that people were just begging, for N95s, and like we would get in KN95s. So we would have to, just say, look, this is what we have, can you use it? And then we were really careful because, your hospitals really didn't want the KN95s, and then they really didn't want us to give it to them. But when it come down to it, we had to really do a lot of juggling and working with hand sanitizer, and that turned into a whole thing by itself, trying to find out where we could do it. But, it really worked out well. In fact, we just got a thing in from one of the hospitals today. They sent us a really nice sign to put out that heroes work here, to put in our yard, which we were very touched to get that from them. And that was really weird because it came today. So that was a big part of our COVID response. So, we were just coming out of that, and every year we have a huge evacuation drill, but this year we didn't do one because we had COVID, and we were kind of dealing with that. But, thank goodness we're very prepared here, and we do this every year. We do a walkthrough, we set it up. What we did do, instead of having the evacuation deal, we set up a big training in case we had to have a shelter in place. We were thinking more of that, and we met with all the directors in the parish. We brought volunteer nurses in. We brought our nurses and our CERT people in and said, okay, if we have to have a shelter, we didn't even consider evacuations at that time. Mm-hmm. This is how we're going to do it. And we had a brand new shelter plan that we were going to try out that we had talked about earlier that I had written. So we had it all together, and I had all these people that I had put in charge of that. And it wasn't even 1 week later that we set up our first evacuation. And it was kind of good because we had just met, went over everything, And I was actually the lead at the Burton Coliseum, the incident commander for evacuation, running it. And that was really different because we had to make sure everyone had a mask. We had to have volunteers at the door, spraying hand sanitizer. We had to take
Okay.
temperatures. We had to do stuff we have never had to do for an evacuation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was very different, which we've all done before. But when you're having to really make sure you have all those supplies on hand to do it, that's really important. And then we had to place all the chairs across the Coliseum so no one was sitting by each other. But things do happen and people move around. So
Mhm.
we had to kind of really be careful about setting up perimeters because people wanted to go out and smoke. You have human nature.
Life.
And
Yeah.
I would just say, because we work with DCFS, which Department of Family Services here in Louisiana, and we did a brand new, usually do Phoenix to do registration. We were doing a new registration for this whole event, which was interesting. So trying to, think of anything that could happen. And it went really well. It just got later in the night. And then it was decided that we didn't think people were not that they weren't taking it serious enough, but about 10 o'clock that night, we had only evacuated 400 people, which is not good when you had a Cat 4, but it rose so fast, people didn't think so. It was brought to the attention to local government to have a evacuation again the next morning. And then we did thousands of people. So
Okay.
that was just that part of it. And we worked through that. So, and we made sure everybody had a mask when they came in. And what was really good about it, because we were the logistics for um, the COVID operation, in the process, as the police jury, we kind of thought ahead of time that we bought our own supplies just in case we had to have an evacuation. We had 10,000 to 20,000 extra masks.
Oh
And
boy.
then, yeah, it was great. We have a warehouse still back there. We had all extra stuff. And it was really fortunate because we worked with the local industries here and worked with them, and we got a lot of donations. And it wasn't just from around here. We had people sending us donations from all over, even when COVID hit, because of, that we have such a rural area and the citywide community. So yeah, hindsight, we did great because we did have the extra merchandise here that we could bring to the Burton Coliseum whenever we had to do that. So the scary part about after we did that, we had left all our sheltering supplies and our extra COVID material at the Burton Coliseum. Well, lo and behold, it actually leaked in one of the rooms where it was at. But when we had to do a second evacuation, we had not even picked up the stuff from the first evacuation. And luckily, I operate like 5 different trailers. I have an evacuation trailer, I have a CERT trailer, I have a I have a command center, I have it all, and it's always ready
You're,
for those
you're
events.
emergency magnet. You're emergency management accessorizer.
I'm a accessorizer, yes. And that's what, and thank goodness my signs come out and everything. I have it all ready to go and we can put it up in 5 minutes. So when we had to do the second evacuation, it was all still there. My trailers were parked inside, thank God, under the Coliseum. So we didn't lose anything. Where a lot of the people that I can say that had parked the vehicles, we had not even got our evacuees back maybe 2 days before the next storm.
Uh,
Yeah, and a lot of them had lost their vehicles. So, but we still do have evacuees in other parts of the state at this time, and in Texas and different places. But we're slowly getting them back. But we have really worked on the non-congregate shelter and had them in hotels, which that worked out really well because nobody could be together. But that's part of COVID and our whole disaster plan. So the main thing right now, what I can say we're working on is the FEMA reimbursement. We talked about that earlier. We just kind of, after we got back from the disaster, that was kind of one of the things they said, since we dealt with volunteers and donations coming in, that's another hold thing that comes into your parish, because you don't know much about FEMA reimbursement, whatever it's considered. If it's 75-25, the parish has to come up with that 25% to pay back FEMA for all the work they do. So we've been collecting the data for all of that, and we've been sending crews around when they were setting up free food, anything they were giving away, working with the United Ways, and anybody that would donate stuff to us. And that's actually the spreadsheet that we're working on right now. We've been in that since we've gotten back from the storms.
Finding a way, finding a way.
Finding a way. We have to get that reimbursement done. Yes.
Yes, yes, very good. So you had COVID going on, you had the one storm, and then you had the second storm. At some place, are you going, what did we do? What did we do? I mean,
you know, that's what we were wondering. Who do we really make angry up there? And then on the top of that, I don't know if you know, we had a plant explosion right after we came back. I mean, we had just got back into the parish to see our houses. Like I didn't leave very far. I was 30 minutes away. So we were.
And if you will, get into that for a second, because we've talked about kind of your professional end of it, but let's talk about what it does personally. Yeah,
sure.
You had to get out of there once, twice.
Yes, once, twice. It's very difficult. And I evacuated 30 minutes down the road with one of my daughters because we were working. So it was really kind of hard to do it. So professionally, it's a little stressful. And being the mom, I have 7 grandkids and 3 daughters. So, you know, I'm like, we got to be prepared. We got to get this. We got to have all this stuff. And, you know, I'm going to say they lived with me. So they kind of think it's funny sometimes. But when they rode the storm out for the first time ever, they have a whole different attitude now about it.
I could only imagine.
You can only imagine. So 2 hours after the storm passed, we went in our vehicles and we headed back to Lake Charles. And I will tell you, it's probably one of the worst sights I've ever seen, because we were just ended when we got back, and going around just poles in the road, electrical lines everywhere, you know, trying to get back to our house, because I actually live right on the coast in Big Lake, which is on a lake. And so we were like really a dead center hit. When we looked at it on the thing, I talked to the Homeland Security Director. I was calling him. I'm like, it just hit by my house. He said, yep, you were dead. We were dead center. Okay. So that was just pretty rough to come back to, and then to try to be strong. And we had all just started, but I can say we have a camaraderie with our MRCs and our CERT teams, that we had a CERT team from Baton Rouge come out to my house. We had MRCs from Harris County show up the next week to help me pick up shingles, help me clean out my house. And it was just amazing what people do together. And I had phone calls from all over the country, just worried about us, whatever they could do with CERT groups and NACHO. And if you don't know about NACHO, it's Natural Public Health, where we get a lot of our grants through Medical Reserve Corps. They were, you know, texting, calling. So it's different when you're on your own. But which is interesting about the plant explosion, it was a chloride thing. We were at my daughter's house because I have 3 girls and all our whole family. I can just say my house and 3 of my daughters only had one that had a house pretty much left. And my mother-in-law, all my nieces and nephews, and everything has lost everything. Oh, but we were at my daughter's house, and my son-in-law runs in there, and my phone starts going off. He said, Miss Angela, we got to get out of here. There's a plant explosion. It's a chloride. I'm like, oh my God. You know, you can't be around that stuff. So they were just they did an evacuation in Westlake for that, because it was a release. So they had people doing sheltering in place during 2 hours after we get back from an evacuation.
You know, here's the interesting thing there. I remember going early in my career to Emergency Management Institute. I'm sure you've been there as well. There in Emmitsburg. And I was going through, I believe it was Advanced Public Information Officer class, and they have Central City. Things go badly in Central City. I mean, it's the kind of place that has 2 hurricanes, COVID, and a chemical plant explosion at the same time. So as you're describing this, I just remember sitting in that class back, you know, many years ago, going, that would be a rough place to live. I don't know that I would want to live there, but it sounds like Central City became Calcasieu Parish there for.
It did. You know, it was like the perfect tabletop scenario with COVID on top, with ice cream on top.
Yeah, where you go, there's no way all of this can happen. 10 years ago, you'd have said, there's no reason to plan to this level because it cannot happen. And here you are.
And here we are. And it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of that many old timers here that have been back through Gustav Knight. We had talked earlier, and I was sitting in our after action report the other day, and one of the public health guys, we were talking about it because, they got up and they're like, okay, so maybe me and one other person here has been through this. Angela, where you're at, because there's very few of us that have been through double whammies like that. But we have such a strong community, and it's very I was talking to somebody today, one of the guys that actually worked for the parish, just got a huge promotion to the governor's office. And I was talking to him on another conference call. He said, I'll come home and he's coming from Baton Rouge. He said, it's very depressing. I'm like, I know and I will tell you, I went for Michael to Panama City because my family's from there. And it's pretty much the same scenario. It was, you ride around and it's like what's being bulldozed today. It's just amazing that we were hit this hard. But like I said, we planned for it, but never dreamed it would be this bad. And I will tell you, it's the first time I've worked for the parish. They had to get pods for employees to live in so we could come back to work. They actually provided, if you needed a place to live, and we had a kitchen, our own. It was like being in an Army Reserve tent. We ate, they gave us our meals, everything, because there was no place to feed people.
Let me ask you this, because you've mentioned MRC, Medical Reserve Corps, and CERT in the same sentence several times, and I believe you work very closely with both of them. What does
I run both of them.
Yeah, you run both of them. Yes.
Yeah.
So in that, what's the value of having both of those during or after a disaster? Because I know it takes a lot to plan and it takes a lot to prepare, but boom, when it happens, what do you have?
It's great because it's a lot to plan for, but if you have trained people, that's number one. Because if you have to stop in the middle of a disaster and start training people, then it's a lot harder. It's harder to manipulate and to do. When you have those trained people show up, it's perfect. And the great thing is we had probably trained about 40 police jury employees for CERT. Because with my Medical Reserve Corps, I am the CERT director also. So I've combined the two because it was a caveat. So I think it's just important, to be able to do. So most of those members that we trained in that before COVID in January, they worked that evacuation. Oh. So they had an idea what to deal with because like I was saying, when I do my trainings for CERT, I do it around what we do here. So I had public health there talking about it. I had people that special needs, because you have to do your special needs to get them on special, they all have to be triaged. So all of that has to be, they didn't walk into and not knowing, oh, what is OPH stand for? What's the DCFS stand for? I had them there. So they knew the meaning, because we all talk in acronyms,
right?
But most of these people don't. So that's another thing, for them to know what to expect. So I think it is important. I think that's so important to have that. And like I mentioned before, I have a really good CERT group, some CERT guys that they were so worried because one of my CERT trailers flipped over, broke in half, and working with government takes time to get new stuff. And they went out and bought their own CERT trailer. They weren't even going to wait on me to get a new one. Yeah. And which is like a testament that they were really behind this. And one of the guys and his son actually worked the incident of the evacuations with me, where you do have some people show up inebriated. Right, so right. They were there to had my back, right, because right. It's a very stressful situation for a lot of people.
Right. Well, how many people do you have on the CERT side? How many people do you have on the Medical Reserve Corps side? And do they mix?
They're all mixed. They have to all take the training for all of it. Okay. Yeah, it's all in one. Medical Reserve Corps director, but when I took this job 14 years ago, nobody was handling CERT, and I'm like, oh, I started looking into it. I said, well, I'll just make it part of Medical Reserve Corps. So it's MRC, but they're CERT trained.
Right. Well, and speaking of, when I was doing a little bit of research before I called you and we lined up this interview, I was looking at a YouTube video that had y'all just received an award, not maybe a year ago, pretty big award. What was that?
We got an award from National Association of Public Health and Hospitals, and we were picked one of the 7 of a pilot program, and they wanted us to pick a something that we wanted to do a mission set on using volunteers. And so the pilot program that I decided to do, because when we had Harvey here, Harvey was different because we're Texas border. So we took in the Texas, we had some people in Calcasieu that were flooded here, and then we took people over the border, and we had 1,100, and we had never ran a shelter here before for 1,100 people like that. That it was parish run with the city that worked hand in hand, and I was the director of that shelter. So, but there was no plan for that shelter. So I told them, I said, we're going to write a shelter plan, and we're also going to write a plan because I have a group of men that work with me that like to travel to other locations. They've helped out North Carolina. They helped out for Michael for the flooding. So we also did a mission set on what they would have to do before they could leave. Like just can't jump up and say, I'm going to Texas to go help them out. They have to go through me. I have to get in touch with the agency to who's coming, and I'll certify them. So that's sort of what the award was for. Everybody took a different mission set. I took sheltering, and the when we turned it over, it was put on the Medical Reserve Corps website as the plan for Medical Reserve Corps for the country.
Oh yeah, very good, very good. Well, that's what we've been seeing out of Calcasieu Parish and out of what you've done for years. Yeah, you know, you've shared your examples when you've been with us at the Community Preparedness Working Group meetings over years. And I remember one conversation that we had then and we still have is whether to have CERT teams or whether you just want people prepared, whether you want to give them individual preparedness through CERT. Your take at this point would be you want the CERT teams, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I do want the CERT teams, but I also really like the idea of having the groups prepared. You know, because I deal with a lot of senior citizens. I run the Senior Olympics here, and we have like 400 senior citizens, and we do CERT training for them. And I think that's so important because they have to know how to take care of themselves. Because even if a tornado hits, we can't always be there.
Right.
So I think it was really important for the community. So we really try to get it a community based where they can take it back with them and train their families. So I think it's a two-edged sword that it should work both ways because I really think it's important for the community.
Right. And I think I cut you off earlier. You were going to say about how many do you have on the CERT side? About how many do you have on the Medical Reserve Corps side?
Well, I'd probably say we have probably about 60 on the CERT side. And overall, Medical Reserve Corps, we have 550 people registered as volunteers. Now, I will tell you, and after any disaster, there's a lot of misplacement right here, right now. So we don't know what we have right now. You know, we're just kind of, it's not like we're rebuilding because a lot of families have moved. They've left. But we do, I will tell you this, in anybody that's doing a CERT, if they work with some of their local governments, we have a system that we got from Homeland Security for a call down system that uses the same system they use. And that has become the most beneficial thing you can do because we can put a call out, text, you know, everything. And the number one thing is having everybody certified with those badges and shirts, and you'll pick up so many new people that way too, because they could be recognized as part of a bigger, because you just don't want people running around doing their own thing.
Right.
Especially if they're trying to get back into a place that's been devastated.
Right. You're a member of the National CERT Association, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Are you finding value, or do you believe there's going to be value in that? And I ask that as a guy that does. I'm on the membership committee. I'm on the leadership committee, and I just see that it's going to be, already is and will be a game changer in that, you know, where at the regional level and headquarters levels, we sometimes don't always have our eye on the CERT ball, and there's trainings that could happen or should happen, or there's changes of administration, whatever the reason, we don't always have everything to share at the right time. Well, I think with this National CERT Association, all the resources are being rolled up. There's a menu, that you can see, and it's not based on somebody coming in, somebody going out. There's always going to be these folks that are true blue, volunteer-minded CERT folks. And you're going to see more and more sharing of CERT products, CERT training, CERT ideas. If nothing else, it's great to be part of that conversation. Is that, and I'm running my mouth, but is that true?
No, I think that's true. That is so true. And it's kind of, and I think I shared that with you before during COVID. I had a group from California that contacted me that was really needing some volunteers to help in one of their medical facilities. And I actually got in touch with the National CERT Association of the leader in California. And he was able to help me to let them know where they needed to call to get help. And it's kind of interesting because my husband's a national sales manager, and he was on the phone, introduced me to one of his salesmen in California out in LA. And my husband's like, oh yeah, that's my wife. She does all this stuff like CERT. And they're like, oh my God, we're CERT members. And my husband's like, oh my God. So we were having this whole conversation. He's like, oh my God. And they were just talking about they started telling me how they did their CERT. So I think that's kind of cool because, and I met a cop the other night somewhere, and he was moving to Florida, and he was like, yeah, I want to be a CERT member. And I was like, okay, you got to go get certified on these kind of things. My husband's like, oh, here we go again. But it is good because you want to bring that up, because to me, it's like, it's always an advertisement. We're a walking billboard of helping people, to help yourself, because I think we're living in those times that we're going to have to help ourselves, especially COVID and, all the things that's happening in our country. We have to be there to take care of ourselves.
More and more, we see that being the case. We got to help ourselves. We got to help our neighbors. We've got to help anybody that needs the help. And, I think if we're continuing to do that on your end, what's the future looking like for you? What's the next 6 months? What's the next year looking like for you and MRC and CERT and Calcasieu Parish?
Yeah, well, we're looking at probably working and helping with pods in hospitals and vaccinations. I've been reading emails all day from our ESFA group because that's coming down the pipeline, and they're trying to figure out how that's going to happen. Right. So I have a feeling we'll probably help with that, but I got a couple emails today from different people already starting to request gear for safety that work in agencies. So I think if it continues, we're now in phase 2 again. Right. So it could be that that's going to gear up to where we start having to worry about getting safety thing out to agencies.
I wanted to ask one more question, but I was just going to say, are you working with the state partners very much? You've got, I know Camila Medina at GOSEP is doing big things there with community preparedness, and I know that Amanda Smith, who's co-chair of our community preparedness working group these days, is over there at Volunteer Louisiana. She and Corey Chisholm doing a lot. So do the circles all?
It's all circles intermingle, because I'm a commissioner for Volunteer Louisiana, and state partners. That's our biggest thing is state partners right now. We do. I work with the guys at Homeland Security, then also Department of Family Services, and actually I was on a conference thing today because of mental health right now is really going through it. Some of the places got damaged here, so we're trying to figure out how to get it back up and going, because there's a lot of mental health issues with all the stress.
I'm seeing that a lot. A lot of my partners are running webinars right now on that. So,
yeah.
Well, is there anything I should have asked you that I have not asked you?
No, I think you did great.
Well, thank you. I think the same. The same for you. And I always love talking to you. I always love catching up and seeing what all you've been doing, because everything you're doing, such tremendous work there. You always do. And it's an example for all of us to follow, and we all know it. We know it across the region. And as you mentioned earlier, you hear it from across the nation, because you've got a good footprint that's spread across the region, the nation, the state, everywhere you go. So I want to
I
thank
appreciate
you
that.
and the work you do with the MRC and Calcasieu Parish, and also for continuing to contribute through the state and also with our Community Preparedness Working Group. Angela, it's been a pleasure, and I hope to talk to you again soon. And I hope that we don't have any more hurricanes, no more COVID hitting, no more central city-ish issues that
I
come your
agree,
way.
Bill. I do too. You know, we ended our other conference call today with, okay, 2020, it's August, 2021. So it's going to be bright, sunshiny rainbows from now on, right?
I like it. The next time I see you, hopefully it's at Galveston in 2022, if not
Yeah,
sooner.
definitely.
Yeah, because that's where John Herman down in Galveston County is working on bringing the National CERT Association there for
Amazing. Yeah, let me know if you
2022.
need something.
If we don't make it to, I think Springfield is supposed to be this year if they're able to have it there.
Right, right.
So I'm hoping we can chink and
That would
enjoy
be fun.
talking about how thankful we are that we haven't had anything since
That's
now.
right. Yeah, let us all get our houses back together now.
That's it. That's it. Well, it is a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. Check us out anytime on Twitter at hashtag R6 Prepares, or follow us on the YouTube channel, hashtag R6 Prepares. Thank you to Lee Baker for his production. See you next time.